All right, the boys are back. Ken Thomson, Dave Cokin, Bryan Leonard. All three of us love our college football, no doubt about it. Mississippi State sitting 1, Oregon jumping to 2, Florida State is at 3, and TCU busting into the top 4. Alabama on the outside looking in, and Baylor as well. Ohio State catapulting up the ranks a little bit there with their big win over Michigan State. And guys, the one question I want to ask you first, before we even talk about Oregon getting over Florida State, is TCU getting into the top 4, losing to Baylor. Granted, they blew a 3-touchdown lead, and I think a lot of us that watched the game felt that they may have been jobbed on a couple pass interference calls that both went against them. So they lose a heartbreaker on a last-second field goal. When I looked at the non-conference schedules, because we all know that TCU beat Minnesota in Fort Worth 30-7 convincingly, I said, man, they had a much tougher schedule. And I looked. They also played SMU. They also played an FCS school. Same thing with Baylor. Baylor's one other game, aside from the Minnesota game, is they went to Buffalo. And again, these schedules are made 4 or 5 years in advance. Not their fault, but again, not a tough schedule. They blew out Buffalo. They both blew out SMU. They both blew out their FCS school. My thing is, Baylor just went into Norman and wasted an Oklahoma team that nearly beat TCU in Fort Worth. So I think this is a toss-up to me. I mean, this could go either way.
Well, the thing is that anybody who doesn't think there's style points out there is crazy. Because the 80-plus that TCU hung on Texas Tech absolutely impressed those voters. These aren't college football experts, okay? I'm no knock on Condoleezza Rice, but come on, okay? If they really want to get this right, they're going to have at least a couple of Vegas people on there, right. Odds makers. Right. I'm not lobbying for the job myself. Odds makers, and they don't, which means that it's still a popularity contest from people who really don't understand a lot of the. They might know football, they might know the good teams, but they really don't understand how to rank teams and how to power rate them. Ideally, this should be the 4 highest power rated teams, regardless of the record. That's who should be in the playoff. It's a 4-team playoff. It should be the 4 highest power rated teams, and it's not going to be.
Yeah, I touched on that in another video about Mississippi fumbling on the 1-yard line, going in for the touchdown.
The guy breaks his leg.
Yeah, he breaks his leg, and they drop 8 points. I've got Alabama number 1 in my power ratings. A lot of people I know have Alabama number 1 in the power ratings. And they're not currently, the way it sits right now, they're not even in the.
Here's the thing, and I think the committee sandbagging a little bit there by getting TCU in there, maybe to let the public know this is how we feel about TCU right now.
But it's not supposed to be how they feel.
Understand.
That's the thing.
But Alabama also controls their own destiny with Mississippi State and Auburn on deck, and they're going to be in there if they win those 2 ball games.
But that's the problem is that Alabama, regardless of what happens this weekend, as of now, as of today, obviously if they lose this weekend, it's going to change their power rating, and with 2 losses, then you can make they're not supposed to be in the top 4. Right now, Alabama is number 1 team in power ratings for most people I know. They've got the best efficiency numbers. There is no argument for number 1 power rated team with 1 loss not to be in the top 4 someplace. It doesn't. It's all going to play out eventually, and we'll see what happens. But here's the other thing that's not going to be fair about this, because it's conceivable that Baylor or TCU could end up in the top 4 in terms of power ratings.
Right.
But the Big 12, because they've only got 10 teams and no divisions, they're running a commercial. The Big 12's running a commercial, and I actually blogged about this and said, they're making a tradition, one division, 1 true champion. No, don't lie, okay? Because you know you need 2 more schools. You need a championship game, because what could very well happen is that you could have, for instance, TCU sitting in that number 4 spot on Championship Saturday in college football, and nobody from the Big 12's playing. Their season's already over, and they're going to get jumped by somebody who wins the SEC or the Big 10. Ohio State could certainly jump them with an impressive win, or the Pac-12. So it's very possible that because of the fact they play in a conference with only 10 teams and no championship game, you could have TCU qualifying on the power ratings and not getting into this thing.
Well, here's the other thing, too. As we look at, TCU and Baylor, I mean, to me, Baylor's a team that they should close the door on their regular season. They play Kansas State at home. Should be their 1 tough game. TCU, they better be careful on Thanksgiving night when they go to Austin, because that same West Virginia team that took them down to the wire, they needed a field goal at the buzzer, they just got shut down in Austin, big time.
TCU shouldn't have won the West Virginia game.
Okay, so
now,
so then why do you have them rated over Baylor?
Doesn't, for whatever reason.
So then why do we have them rated over Baylor?
That's just how the numbers add up.
Yeah, what they've done for me lately is really what they remember.
But is it just because of their non-conference win against Minnesota that has them ahead of Baylor? Because Baylor beat them. Baylor beat them straight up.
Oh yeah, I know.
So then
I have no argument there. If you want to, if you want to do comparative victories, that's fine. I don't have a
Baylor
problem.
lost to West Virginia in Morgantown, and TCU needed a last-second field goal in Morgantown to win. So again, we're splitting hairs. They both pounded SMU and then FCS. So we're looking at the Minnesota game, and so it bodes well for TCU that Minnesota better hang with Ohio State and not drop their last few games, because as Minnesota goes down, that win by TCU at home in Fort Worth doesn't look that impressive.
What really could be comical, it could still happen, is if nobody from the SEC. They're clearly going to have a top 4 team, probably 2 top 4 teams when the whole dust settles on the power ratings. But it is possible if things go wrong, and for instance Missouri jumps up and beats somebody in the conference title game, they could end up with nobody.
That's the only way.
To show you how people don't understand power ratings when it comes to this kind of thing. Remember last year in the NBA, the Philadelphia 76ers start the season 3-0. They were ranked number 1 in the ESPN power ratings. Sports Illustrated yesterday puts out their power ratings on Twitter. Sacramento number 5. I retweet. I go, Sacramento on a neutral field. There's 20 teams in the NBA that'll be favored on a neutral court over Sacramento right now. I mean, they're an improving team, but you cannot put them. They had San Antonio not even in the top 5.
And Sacramento promptly blew a 24-point lead.
There you go.
So yeah, no doubt about it. But hey, it is going to get really interesting. I mean, it really is, and it is conceivable if Bama beats Mississippi State, Auburn beats Bama, Mississippi beats Mississippi State. There you have everyone in the West with 2 losses. If Georgia doesn't get in, because let's face it, we're all probably on the same page, even though Mark Richt is not great in big games, probably the only talent coming from the East that has a chance to knock off anybody from the West. If it is Missouri that somehow gets there, and right now they're in front, and they do knock off the Western team, you're right. I wouldn't have anybody from the SEC in.
Waiting for Colgate to draw some mention.
It's crazy, but then you could have TCU and Baylor. You could have TCU and Baylor.
That's all that
both
matters,
get in, Dave.
I know. I like their toothpaste and.
Brian, you could have TCU and
actually
Baylor both
visited
get in.
their
If
campus
SEC team does not get in, TCU and Baylor, if they finish tied with 1 loss, they could both get in the Final Four.
Why is Marshall not even in the top 25? Why is Minnesota number 25 and Marshall's not number 25?
Because Marshall has played 1 team with a winning record.
They're still one of the 20, top 25
Marshall
teams.
plays Minnesota. Who's going to be favored? Marshall will be favored over Minnesota.
I have Marshall. I think I have them around 21 on my power
they're a
ratings.
better.
They're a legitimate team.
They're a better team than Minnesota is, regardless of who they play.
I think they're going to be in trouble this week trying to stop that Rice team. As far as the number, 21.
Oh, the number. I was good. Yeah, but the number, that spread doesn't matter.
They struggled with Florida Atlantic. They trailed at the half at home.
And then they killed them.
Yeah, they beat them by 19. They didn't cover, but
I think maybe they're playing a little more conservatively to make sure they stay unbeaten. Because
Florida Atlantic took
Marshall is going
in the first half.
Early in the year,
Marshall is going to get to one of that extra spot. Not in the championship series,
the bowl,
obviously.
the BCS Bowl, or the old BCS Bowl, like a New Year's Day good bowl.
Early in the year, Marshall was blowing people out in the first half. Basically, we were just trying to kill them and get the players out of there. And we look for the next week because they knew if they go undefeated, they're playing in a big bowl.
Rakeem Cato, he's the real deal, no doubt, and a great story if you get a chance to see it. Brian, right now, if I had to put you on the spot real quick, who do you like to be in the Final Four?
Without looking at the schedule above, who do I think the top 4 teams are now?
Who will be there at the end of the year?
Well, I think Alabama's going to be there. I don't see Alabama losing again. I think Oregon's probably going to be there. As much as I'd like to see Ohio State, I don't think they've done enough to be able to make that jump. Mississippi State's going to lose 1. If Mississippi State loses 1, they'll still be in the top 4. Boy, I sure don't hope Florida State's not there, but if they win out, Florida State will be there.
You can't keep them out if they win.
Yeah, you can't keep them out.
So then you kick TCU out even if they run the table the rest of the way?
Yeah. And I just bet against Florida State when they play a good team in the playoffs.
Dave, same thing?
Yeah,
Or do you think Mississippi beats Mississippi State in Oxford?
You know what? I'm not. I can't even speculate on that until I see what happens this weekend. I mean,
that's fair.
If Mississippi State gets blown out this weekend, which according to the spread they might. Some people disagree with that. I might be one of them. But if they get blown out this weekend, they could crash and burn in the last few weeks, and Dan Mullen will start packing his bags to go back to Gainesville.
Yeah, I'm with you. Alabama, Oregon, those are the 2 that I think are going to get in there because I think Oregon, even with their injuries, good enough to beat Arizona State.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, though, Arizona State's the sleeper.
Well, Taylor Kelly's getting better. He looked a lot better Then he did the first 2 games, shaking off some of the rust, and the defense, they came back.
They went to sleep a little bit after with the big lead against Notre Dame, but
They
were
them in the
hitting
fourth
that
quarter.
team in the first quarter. Holy cow.
No doubt about it. All right, we'll do this each week as we update the Final Four. We'll do this at the end of our 3 videos, and we'll do an update and keep you abreast of our feelings as far as the committee's rankings there as far as college football. For Dave Cokin, for Bryan Leonard, I'm Ken Thomson. Thanks to Cade Cridlin, who does a great job producing everything here for pregame.tv, and thanks to RJ for signing Brian's paycheck. We'll be back next week, pregame.tv.